Spawnable is the premier podcast spotlighting people of color. Every week, we talk news, what we've been playing, and tell you who's invited to the cookout. Our show is all about talking about gaming through a prism of blackness, because we are the culture. Welcome to Chicago, y'all.
Yo, what up, everybody in Chicago? This is the Spawnable podcast with Kahlief Adams. I'm your host, Kahlief Adams. I hope you're doing well, having a wonderful, wonderful beginning of your month, which we're now in May, and hope you're having a fantastic week as well. It is a very busy gaming time here in the video game industry and here on Spawnable. We have a ton of games we've been playing. We played Expedition 33 Clair Obscur with our review. Please go check that out on YouTube and on our Spotify page. We also just finished up South of Midnight a couple weeks ago. I'm now playing a couple games we're going to be talking about in the 411. And it's just nuts because Summer Game Fest is literally right around the corner. And there are just a ton of really good games out right now that I'm getting a chance to play. And I'm sure all of you at home are playing as well. If you missed our last episode and all the goodness that we had a chance to talk to, you missed our Earth Day episode with our friends over at Clean Play. Go check out their work over at cleanplay.org cleanplay.com, I believe, to talk about all the work they're doing to kind of help you as a gamer make the world and environment a cleaner place. But this episode, we have a lot of goodies to talk to and a lot of goodies to talk about. And first, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to a wonderful person from the team over at Stoic. We're going to be talking to Shayna, who's one of the design directors over there, talking about her work on Towerborne. And then after that, we're going to dig into the 411 and talk a little bit about Marathon, my time with Marathon, which has been ridiculously fun and super good. And talking to, we just got a chance to see today, as the time we're recording this, our first glimpse at Borderlands 4, which is really looking like the game that I was hoping for. So without further ado, we're going to take a quick spin over to our interview with Shayna and the team from Stoic. And then we'll take a quick break. And right after that, we're going to talk about all the information that's been dropping this week in the 411. Again, if you are new to the podcast, welcome in. Please make sure you're checking out our show on all podcast platforms and all of that goodness there. So check out the video and audio versions of the show. But until then, here is our interview with our friends from the team over at Towerborne. What's good, everybody in Chicago? We have a fantastic, awesome, dope interview with somebody who I've been really excited to talk to because I've been playing a game that they have been working on and making, and I am really hyped to talk to the folks from Stoic about Towerborne. Shayna Markham, thank you so much for coming and hanging with me on Spawn on Me today. How are you doing? How's everything going?
Doing all right. Just a little busy, but otherwise fantastic. Thank you for letting me come on.
I'm hyped because I've been playing in previews and now launch is happening, and I have been a big fan of everything that Stoic has done over the years with Banner Saga and all the other games that have been in the space for a long time. And getting a chance to now dig into probably one of my favorite games of the year because of the breadth and depth of just like how fun the gameplay is. Of course, the art style is beautiful and gorgeous, and all of the pieces are kind of coming together. I'm really hyped to have you on and to talk to you about all the work you get a chance to do. So that's rad. First thing I want to get into, I think a lot of folks, when they come to an episode of Spawn and Me and we have devs on the show, you have your title, design director, but I think a lot of folks may not necessarily know exactly what that means in terms of, what does your day-to-day work look like? What does it kind of look like from, how are you injecting your talents into this game? So give the folks at home a little bit of information about not only, what you do on the game, but a little bit of your background too would be great.
Sure. So for a bit of background, I've been a designer for pretty much all of my time in this industry. I'm coming up on about 20 years now. My particular expertise has been systems design, and that's taken me through a variety of games from Spider-Man 3 over at Treyarch to working over at Gas Powered Games on Demigod or Supreme Commander 2 or Age of Empires Online. A little bit of time at Wargaming and then over at Intercept for Kerbal Space Program 2. A design director is one part manager, one part enabler. So I work alongside the game director, who's Daniel McLaren, to understand what is the game that we're looking to make. What are the parts that we want to build? What's the kind of experience that we want players to have? And then I work alongside the variety of lead designers, so like Isaac or Chris or Tyler or McKenna, who are my leads and principals, to say like, hey, here's the overall goal. You all have particular talents in particular parts of this game. How do you want to contribute to this? How do we make this the best that we can? And so my part at that point is allowing them to do their best work while also keeping an eye on the holistic goal of what we're looking to do, to make sure that all of those pieces come together into something that's better than their individual pieces. They're greater than the sum of their parts.
Yeah. That's awesome. So it's like you have a very top down, but also kind of like in the weeds kind of role where you're facilitating the kind of collaborative efforts from all the parts of the team, and then kind of giving that the grand direction towards the main goal. If you were to say to a person who hasn't seen anything about Towerborne yet, like give them the synopsis, the kind of like elevator pitch of what the game is. So they have a better understanding of where that is.
Sure. It is a side-scrolling looter brawler. You are an ace, which is a deathless defender of the people who are escaping from a city that has been destroyed. And so for one part, you're trying to make sure that everybody gets there safely. The other one is you're trying to figure out, why did that happen at all? You're trying to solve the mysteries around this world through really some gorgeous combat with a surprising amount of it's easy to get into, and there's a surprising amount to master. If you're going to let me dig in a little deeper on that.
1,000%. Please do. No, I think exactly why you're here. Exactly.
I played with my daughter last night via couch co-op. So it was me and my husband and my kid. And it was, my husband and I are both pretty familiar with games, and we're chewing through this together. But like, it's fun to be able to play with my 5-year-old kid, who's able to get in there. She's like, she can go in there, she can run around, she can hit buttons, and we're all succeeding together, and that feels great. On the flip side of this, our combat lead Isaac started posting very in-depth combo videos in the group Discord, and it's like, it is such a wild difference between like what you need to kind of get yourself off the ground to like what is possible, and that's super engaging. There's so much room to grow.
One of the things, and I'm happy to hear you talk about that, because it is hard to build a game that is extremely accessible but also has a ton of gameplay depth. I think you're one of the perfect people to talk to this, is because of the systems that you're building, from combat to customization to co-op to all of these really intricate layers that go across what Towerborne is. And then you have like progression, and then you have bosses, and then you have, just the kind of, run-of-the-mill enemies in there. How difficult is it to kind of build out and plan out, all of these kind of pieces that become the whole? And how do you make all that stuff continue to feel so cohesive in Towerborne?
So most designers, whenever you're doing a project that's pretty large, you'll come up with a list of like, these are the pillars of the game. This is the definition of what this is. And so anytime that you're adding something or changing something to the game, you're having to reinvestigate that against all of your pillars. And you're like, hopefully these all enhance every pillar that you've got. If it happens to take away from one, then you'll have to have like deeper conversations about like, well, is that really the case? Is this actually a pillar? But like you get like a really top level razor to work against, and then from here, I mean, this is an absolutely massive game, which would not be possible without folks like the leads and principals that are here, who all have these various degrees of specialties, and so they'll take the time to work amongst each other for like, hey, I'm doing enemies, and I think this is the kind of behaviors that I want to have for this, and so they'll set out their rules for each other, as Isaac will talk about, like, hey, I want to make sure that enemies don't do wake up attacks until about danger level 3, because we have an overall goal of like, we want players to feel pretty comfortable about progressing, and then we say like, we think you understand the game at about this point, and this is when we're going to start changing up the experience for you. You'll see that across missions as well, where you'll start to see more dangerous sets of encounters appear, or lieutenants start to appear mid-fight, as opposed to like this the very last thing that you wrangle. And then that all kind of layers together with the build crafting as well. We have particular rules also in regards to balance about like, when do we want players to actually start caring about their builds? And so in the end, this is all like player experience over time that we're developing. And it's just like, how do all of these pieces come together to say like, I am contributing to that rule as well.
That's interesting, because I think one of the, I'll come back to the experience as a player.
Yeah.
And usually when it comes to games like this that have so many layers to it, it can feel a little overwhelming. And I think what you've all done has, given me as a player and other folks the ability to think about what the idea of min-maxing those specific parts are when you're going up difficulty levels, and seeing what, pieces of kit you want, and, gear sets and things like that are, other parts of those things, while also having those moment to moment, gameplay moments feel impactful, feel fun, feel challenging. And all of those things, again, just the word I keep coming back to is cohesive, because it feels like the thought behind each one of these parts and how they interlock together is just really, really well done. When you're getting to the points where you're, coming into the kind of end stretch of a game like this, what's your role in terms of like helping to not only keep people on track in terms of that kind of main focus to what the underlying gameplay pillars are, but players do wild stuff all the time, right? Like they break things all the time. So how do you balance not only, what is it like to, have that main kind of direction, knowing that players are going to continuously break the rules for what you've built all the time?
I mean, that's the part we're dealing with right now. We spotted one of these. I won't say what it is.
Yeah.
But when we came to the point where like, oh, this was unexpected. And I mean, as much as you're hoping that QA is able to pick things up, and we also had a sub team within QA that was literally about trying to find crazy builds and ways to break the game. But that's no substitute for a player. A player will find them. It's basically we're all watching together through various feedback channels. Not only watching for like, what's going on in Discord, or what's going on in reviews, or what's going on in Reddit, but also amongst the team itself, who is very engaged in playing this game, going through our own Slack channels together to find things, and then discovering those issues, triaging them, and working alongside our executive producer and our game director to find out like, hey, this is how complex of a fix this is. When's the right time to get this within the game? And then there's longer term things as well, where there's like nice quality of life improvements or features that we know we want to get into, that we're also having to kind of juggle against knowing just like some part of our life is going to be dedicated to helping the current play experience out because we're a live game. That's just the cost of it.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a thing that I think of all the time when it comes to seeing not only, you know, the idea of what live service is and the kind of conversations of what that means, but also that continuous, you know, cycle of QA. And again, are we actually kind of like hitting the marks that we're looking for in some of those ways? So in the overarching kind of big picture idea of Towerborne, I come to it with the like, if I just want to go in with my friends and go beat stuff up, get some cool gear, and finish a couple of rounds, that's an interesting thing to be able to do. And then the whole like layers of campaign and kind of story and all those things are layered in there too. How do you balance out the discussion internally about like, you know, we know players are going to see the main bits of the game because some of that is tutorial, some of it is kind of getting you into the game space and getting you the chops to understand like how to play the game. But also, you're also battling what winds up happening when it's like end game content, right? You know, air quotes end game content for a live service game. When you are thinking about designing for that too, what are some of the biggest kinds of things that you want to show a player? Again, we're not spoiling anything, but like, what are the things you want to kind of give an understanding for players to kind of understand, like at the top level, while also being able to pull in new players and say, here's an experience for you that you can also then get to those you know later moments without having to feel like you're being beat down by the game in the same ways, you know, depending upon the difficulty.
The game that I look at that I think that does this especially well is Final Fantasy XIV, where I no surprise, I'm a Savage Raider in there. We're chewing through the new set of Arcadian fights right now, but they do a very good job of there's that initial experience, and you go like, this is very difficult content to do, and then you'll see like a handful of months later they'll start to build in subsystems that instead cater to other players in order to catch up. Like the relic system is one of those ways of players to be able to obtain power or alliance raids. They're just ways to be able to catch up from the set of players who started beforehand with some of the most difficult content that they had, and that's one of those things that I like to carry with me into thinking about Towerborne as well. Is ultimately that is players are going to engage in your game in different ways. For every person who is you know, I want to come in here, do my set of dailies, get some writs and get some cool customization. There are folks who are looking to speed run, or folks who are looking to do the hardest content while naked, which is classic for us, but also like I'm real familiar with that world from Monster Hunter, where it's very easy to do that kind of thing. And so as we launched with a limited time event right now for Golden Week, and I'm really looking towards those live events and limited time modes and things like that in order to kind of investigate what are things that we want to show players about the game. What are areas that they may not have considered, and ultimately what are the parts that resonate with them? Because if we find ourselves with a set of things that really strike players, then we know this is the area that we want to dig into. It's a bit of a back and forth communication, really, and those live events really help us kind of set that space.
I mean, and you've also, for folks who are watching this in the video format, where we're showing some gameplay here from the game and talking through it, but I think I love to hear you talk about the kind of back and forth layers of there. Having things in preview, I'm sure were fantastic for the team initially to kind of get, good understandings of what were, players feeling and getting good feedback about those parts too. And I think a lot of folks are coming to this with an understanding of the pedigree of the studio as well, which I think is really important too. I do want to talk a little bit about that because I think that's also, really interesting. I think from a gameplay perspective, this is very different than what we've seen from Stoic in the past couple of games and iterations and things like that. I know you've kind of recently joined the team in the past year and have come to working with them. When you were kind of like, hey, I would love to work at a place like this and get my design on here, were you also a fan of the work that Stoic had been doing and being like, oh, I can add my talents to this pretty easily and have like a really good, connection here of how that works? What were your thoughts about joining the team?
I've also been a fan of Stoic. I'm a big fan of Banner Saga. Especially as kind of a tactical RPG nerd, that was right up my alley, along with like, here's narrative with real consequences. So perfect piece. And then as I was interviewing for this position, as I was learning more and more about what Towerborne was, I was like, oh, this is the cross section of so many things that I love to play. Between action combat games like Monster Hunter to MMORPGs like Final Fantasy, to like, I saw this and I went to, oh, this gives me Dragon's Crown vibes. It's like I lost months to Dragon's Crown, and I'm just like, I'm ready to lose months again, especially if I get to have some impact into what's going on here. And this, as you called out, like, I've been on this team for coming to a year, but not quite there. And the folks who are on this team are absolutely fantastic and utterly dedicated to their craft. And going through the interview process, it was very clear that all of them just passionately loved this project and the work that they were doing, and it shows. And from every cute Umbra animation to every rad weapon skill, it's been a real treat.
It's the flourishes, right? It's the small things that always add up to the greater whole of a project like this. And it sounds like, the things that you've learned throughout your long career and now working on this team, it feels like all of those pieces are kind of well suited to your skill set and also your love of games like this, which I think a lot of folks misconstrue the idea that developers don't love the games that they make, or that they don't love games in general. So it's always great to hear, folks talk about their love of games and discuss those things. What were some things that you were kind of already playing that might have also kind of helped to inform some design that was going into this game? You talked a little bit about Final Fantasy, but I'm sure that there are other games that you and other parts of the team have been playing to kind of like inform what Towerborne has become.
It's not only games that we've been playing, it's also games that we have worked on. There's a fair number of people who come in from ArenaNet, so from Guild Wars 2, and that's a game that has it's an MMO with a relative level of friendliness, but also depth to customization, and you start to see that kind of peek in. McKenna worked over at Sucker Punch for Ghost of Tsushima for a while, and so she was working on missions over there, and so you start to see some of the lessons from there brought into here as well. Isaac, before he came over here, was over on Iron Galaxy working on Killer Instinct, which is honestly a top-notch game for that simple to begin with and difficult to master. If I've ever had to recommend a fighting game for somebody who never played fighting games before, I would start with Dive Kick, and then I would probably go into Killer Instinct.
That's great. No, you are not my favorite person because you shouted out Dive Kick. Dive Kick. If you are not a fan of Dive Kick, you have lost a really important part of the video game industry in its history of what wild, weird fighting games can be. Oh, I'm so happy you talked about Dive Kick. It's so good.
It is such a distillation of what it means to play a fighting game, to where everybody who is intimidated by long combos and like, oh, do I need to stop here, or like what the hell is a Roman cancel? It's like it's just this.
I love it. No, keep going. I'm sorry, you're finishing your statement.
Oh yeah, no, it's just like it's a very simple set of moves and just trying to understand what your opponent is doing at high speed.
I mean, that's the reason why I'm really digging the game too. I think the balance, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, of just like, you have these 4 classes that are very distinct and have very different kinds of move sets and ideas around, their kit and the way that they kind of interact with the world with their moves. But the depth in terms of once you start to get some of your powers and some of your abilities alongside the actual weapons that you have. How fun was it to kind of dig into that space and say, like, we're going to try this? Like, I've never seen anything like Pyro before. Like that class and the way that class interacts with enemies and its moveset. I've never seen anything like that before. What was it like to kind of go through the process of iteration and ideation and designing those kinds of classes?
So I came in while these 4 classes were initially set up, and so they had their set of focus skills that were originally set to their weapon. And so like for any sort of weapon that you would receive, you would have like a light focus skill and a heavy focus skill. That was what we went into early access with. And so there were a number of like fundamental rules in place about what it meant to be able to do that class. You calling out Pyroclast, Pyroclast is not my main, but it's probably my favorite because it's such a cool intersection of what it means to have a really fun experience that's also true to the narrative. There isn't the Ace themselves do not wield magic. The Umbra is probably the closest thing that they've got to it, and so the War Club or the Pyroclast it's got like this nice bit of like, I could almost believe that this is technologically sound. I'll put all my time on Kerbal on the side for that. But when we got to doing class skills, which was the big thing that we did for game preview, that gave us a chance to reinvestigate what the class's identities were, and ultimately like, are there subsets of this, and how do we let players kind of pick and choose the strengths or the things that they are really into for that class. I actually changed classes between early access to game preview. I was playing Shadow Striker beforehand, and then Shield Toss came in, and I'm like, that's it. I'm a sucker for a good Shield Toss.
I have not gotten a Shield Toss on yet. I need to play a little bit more with that class because I've been playing with Gauntlets and Pyro. So far, and they feel really good. Like, I think, when I was in preview, I played Pyro kind of basically by itself and was like, this is the class I'm going to stick with. And I was like, I need to actually learn how to like move around and like play other classes, because I feel like I also, when I get into a co-op session, I don't want to be the copy. You know what I mean? Like, everything synergizes so well in terms of the way that the combat maneuvers feel. That I'm like, I want to be singularly this character so I can, help do other things in that space.
Right. Like Shadow Striker has the ability to help others go into stealth. And so it's like, oh, we get now I feel a little bit supportive. Pyroclast has a little bit of that support as well, which feels nice. I when I'm doing couch co-op now with my daughter, because she plays Sentinel, it's like I also can't play Sentinel. I'm with you. It's like I can't copy this, and so I have to find like just what's the lowest level class that I've got right now, and just play that to try and understand it better.
Yeah, yeah. What's the, when you're watching your daughter play, and she's learning a game and getting her feet wet in terms of like playing a game like this. What are the kind of responses that she's giving you in terms of like, game feel is a thing that we have language for, right? But kids kind of don't yet, or they do it, but it's in a different way, right? What's the kind of responses and feedback you're getting from her in terms of what she's playing and how she's feeling about it?
When we talk about build crafting, she's going to leave that off to the side. I was like, that's fine. But the ease at which she understands who she is. She has this huge range of customizability in who she wants to look like, and at a whim go like, I don't want to look like this anymore. I'm going to go pick something else. But for her, it's this notion of like, I can see myself clearly. I can move around. I can do light attacks and heavy attacks, and I can mash these buttons together to make things look nice. I can push this other button to make my Umbra do something cool. But like she's pretty focused on like movement and basics, and then you kind of have to remind her of like there's these other things that you could do as well. But we're so early into the game where like she's not really having to think about how it flows together. She's not being tested on those components. It's basically just like, do you know how to move? Do you know how to attack? And do you know how to not get hit?
Yeah. I think that's when, because I have some nephews who had a really young, one of my really young nephews come by yesterday actually, and I was playing. Yeah. And he was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "This is Towerborne. This is really, really fun." I couldn't let him play because his mom was like, no violent games. Not yet. Oh. Anything with a weapon. Not yet. Like not yet. But
that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. But the thing that he brought through immediately was the art style. And immediately it was like, ooh, pretty. Like that looks really nice. That looks interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts about, I think Stoic has been around for a long time. I think, again, harkening back to the games in terms of the Banner series and all of those things, which are very well known for the like unbelievably beautiful aesthetics that they bring to the space. And I think Towerborne in and of itself has a lot of that too. Like even just like when you're in your character creator and, I was picking my nose last night. Not picking my nose and
as you do.
As you do when you're playing a game. You know what I mean? I was picking my character's nose. And there was a really subtle detail of like, how do you differentiate shadow on the character? Like small things like that. Like, how are you all, because, the other part of this is the customization layer that you're giving players. And I think, being able to differentiate what your character looks like, not just from gear, but like from the other parts of it is important. Yeah. How was it like working with the art teams to kind of nail how design in a gameplay and systems layer is interacting with the art that comes along with building these characters, building these worlds and all of it?
You're totally right about the attention to detail, and you see that come up as we're going through concept art or models for new enemies, or even as we are starting to do class skills. It's just like, what does this look like? And so there's a lot of rule of cool that goes on there, which is perfectly fine, because what it does is it allows us to kind of key into that as well and say like, this is a unique behavior. This is easy to tell when this is going on, and particularly in a brawler that says, have you done 4-player content in Towerborne? Because it gets crazy. It's that rule of cool has been helpful in order to help differentiate who you are and where you are in the moment. And this art team is super willing to work alongside design to say like, what is the thing that we need to tell the player in the moment doing this thing? And from there, just like, we've got the rules, let's iterate over this a few times. And it's super fun to watch that, like, okay, I think my goal is met, and then you say, but wait, let me do a little more, and let me do a little more. And it gets into a really magical place.
I mean, I think, you know, the fantastical style just pops off the screen. It is stunning to look at from just like all the, you know, we had some folks from Virtuous Studios on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking to them because they were doing a lot of work on the VFX side of things and talking about how that stuff works. And everything that on this, when I'm playing this game and looking at the screen, like, everything is popping off the screen, like abilities and just like overworld and enemies and little tells of small things of just like, yeah, I'm gonna pop you up and then throw you into a bush and you're gonna die. Like those things are just like how all those pieces kind of connect together is just really, really smartly done. And it feels like, you know, you have all found your sweet spot in the way that the game is playing and feeling. We're almost out of time, but I do want to ask you, like, for players who are kind of, again, just coming to Towerborne and having an understanding of, you know, what this game is bringing to the overarching space of what a brawler can be in a loot brawler in that sense. What are some of the first things you want them to kind of poke at? I mean, the tutorial will walk you through some of that stuff, but like, what are some of the things you really want players to kind of understand from a system level of how to kind of interact with and really work towards?
Sure. I would start by play the 4 classes as early as you can. Find the thing that works for you. They're pretty different in how they behave, and so I think there's a quest early on that basically just tells you, hey, go play one of these other ones. Go play all of them in order to figure it out, and you'll come across a favorite for sure. Make sure that you're heading back to the Belfry in order to go through your gear and make sure you're getting your upgrades in. We're pretty friendly about it until probably about danger level 3, and by then you should have kind of the ins and outs of that flow all together of, like, I clear a mission, I get some loot, I check out my loot, I do some upgrades, I go figure out what I need to go do next and go for it. And then last but certainly not least, this is a game best played with others. So if you've got friends, get your friends. If you've got an ample couch, go get some friends to go fill up that couch. But if you've got neither of those, then there's a group finder. And so you're able to quickly and easily find folks that are playing the game as well for a particular goal or a particular danger level. Join a group. If you're the leader, you get to pick out what everybody's up to. If you're not a leader, then you're at their whim and you kind of learn a little bit more about what other folks are up to. But watching others play, and as much as we just talked about how it's like, oh, we don't want to play the same class as everybody else, watching how somebody else is playing the class gives you a lot of insight into what you may be doing right or what you may be missing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Those are really good tips, because I think I haven't had the chance to play couch co-op with folks, but you know, a lot of folks have been yearning for couch co-op, and this is a great way to kind of bring that back in such a beautiful way. I think the want for folks to really explore is also super important, like you talked about, and you know, don't be tied to one thing. You don't have to.
Yeah.
I love how fluid it is when you get to kind of like bounce between things and feel very competent in all of those when you're playing.
Oh yeah, this is not a game where you make a single decision and you feel it for the rest of your life, and you're like, oh, do I need a reset? It's like, no, it's very easy to turn around and say, like, I don't know if I really felt this. Let me try this in a different way, or let me pick a different skill set, or hey, I died when I did this, and so maybe I should be looking for gear that has this kind of stat on it, or maybe I need to go and pick a different set of class skills. In early access, I hit this at like the transition between DL4 and DL5, where it's like DL4, I was like glass cannon, all attack all the time, and then I hit DL5 and some of the enemies had brought in some new moves, and I'm like, oh, hold on a minute. I'm not scuffed. I just need to go back through my gear and get a little bit to sustain me until I figure out how all these moves work. And then, like, a few days later, I was like, okay, I understand it now, and I went back into Glass Cannon.
Yeah, the learning curve is a good ramp too. I think I've gotten to a couple of spots where I was like, all right, I need to think about not only tactics but, like you said, gear. And also I was like, maybe I need some actual help. Like maybe I need some friends to kind of come in and roll with me and get these things done. I have to say again, huge shout to you and the rest of the team. Please give them my love, because I love everything that you have done over the, the lineage of the studio and all the work you're getting a chance to do, gets a chance to be seen in, again, one of my favorite games of the year already, in a really feature-packed, wild year of really good games.
Man, it's been a wild week, really.
Right? Oh, it has been madness. I don't have time to play half the stuff that I'm trying to play.
Oh yeah,
but it's been rad. So I want to thank you again for spending some time with me today. Again, getting a chance to see the work you get a chance to do, and have it be in this game and get a chance for other folks to enjoy it. I'm very excited and hyped for all of you at Stoic, and you all are brilliant. So thank you again for spending some time with me today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you again for letting me come in here and talk a lot about really just an awesome game. I am excited for where we are, and I'm excited for where we're going.
Heck yeah. I'm excited. If you need a co-op player, I am Leafy Greens in the game. Leafy Greens in the game. So if you want to get some run in, and anybody else at home, if you want to get some run in when you're playing the game, we can definitely do that for sure. Everybody, we're going to go take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Spawn on Me right after this. Man, that was super good. That was super fun. Always a dope time getting a chance to talk to all of those folks about all the work that they get a chance to do. It is always brilliant to be able to rock with them and hear a little bit more about what the video game industry is doing and how a game like Towerborne came to be. And, I always like to dig into the minutia of all the goodness that happens around discussions about how games are made and how they come to fruition. So it was really good to be able to talk to Shayna about all the dopeness that she's bringing to the table with her team over at Stoic for Towerborne, which, again, that game is dope. Like, if you're not playing that joint, you need to go download it on Game Pass, go download it on your platform of choice, and get some reps in. I think it's one of my favorite, it's one of my favorite games so far of 2025. It's very chill, but also very, very challenging in the ways you get a chance to do some of that work for sure. We're going to take a quick break, and right after that, we're going to get right into the 411 right after this. Hey everybody, Kahlief here from the Spawn on Me podcast. Hey, we have been in the market for new PCs for a long time, and for our 10th year anniversary, the wonderful folks from NZXT have partnered with us in a collab to be our hardware sponsors. So, if you are looking for a new PC to stream or to game in the best way possible, go check out nzxt.co/SpawnOnMeBLD, and you'll be able to find a perfect PC for you, whether that be the Player 1 machine, Player 2 machine, or Player 3 machine. The ones that we're rocking for our new studio build. They have everything you possibly could need for the best PC experience on the planet. Remember to go check out nzxt.co/SpawnOnMeBLD, and they will get you set up right. Much love and peace.
Hey there, my name is Naomi, and you might know me from internet things like hosting for IGN. I'd like to introduce you to my new show, This Week in Gaming. It's 20 minutes, short and sweet, and every week I go through all the important gaming news that you need to know, and then we have folks on like Kahlief Adams, who shows up quite often, talk about all the important news. And you get to listen to it wherever you get your podcast, so it's easy to find. Just look for This Week in Gaming and make sure to give it a follow. And every week, Monday at 9 p.m. Pacific time, you get a brand new episode. I hope you'll join me.
First up on the 411 for episode 4 5:45 of the Spawn on Me podcast. We just got a chance to check out our first look at Borderlands 4 coming to you from our friends over at Gearbox. They had a PlayStation State of Play dedicated directly to the game. And we got a chance to learn some really cool stuff. Like, I am a huge Borderlands fan. I've been a big Borderlands fan forever, since the first game, and now getting a chance to see this game grow to its fourth iteration within the IP and within the franchise is super cool. Because again, like games now these days don't get a chance to make it that far into those kinds of spaces and those numbers, and you've done so well in terms of sales. And I think they are now part of the cultural zeitgeist in terms of the looter shooters, which they are pretty much the first game to really do it in a big scale way. And it was cool to be able to see them stick with a very cohesive and very nailed in aesthetic that we've all kind of know to love, with their kind of painterly style, that kind of cel shaded look. But, they're building on not only what this game has been for its lifespan, but also they're doing some really cool things that are broadening out what this game is going to wind up being. So the friends over at Kotaku made a quick list of things that we get a chance to kind of engage with in the game and have an understanding of what those new things are going to wind up being. One of the things I kind of came across from Randy Pitchford, CEO and head of Gearbox, was him talking a little bit about a more grounded tone and something that kind of harkens back to the original game. I think most people, when they think of Borderlands, they think of the super over-the-top comedic layers of what it was trying to do. I think Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3 really brought that together in a much bigger way, but it sounds like they're going back to a, maybe, I want to say less funny tone, but a more grounded tone, which, we'll understand what that means when we get a chance to see it for the first time, because I'm very excited for what that's supposed to be. But what does a grounded tone mean now in 2025, when the impetus was to go as balls to the wall and over the top as you possibly could? That worked for them in a lot of different ways. I think it was one of the touchstones and hallmarks of the series, and was something that you had an expectation for going into a Borderlands game. So it will be interesting to see where the story and the kind of tone moves in this space. So I'm very excited about that. You'll be moving to a new planet called Kairos, which is one that was previously controlled by a mysterious hidden alien known as the Timekeeper. So now we get a new baddie to understand, what their impetus was for doing what they're doing and how they're kind of messing around in the world and seeing what that looks like. So excited for what new locales and new storyline bits are going to be there in those ways. It will support cross-play at launch, so let you play two-player split screen co-op while others are playing and be able to set their own difficulty, and that loot will be instance. So that's really cool. So like if you are like, I'm playing with my friends and their difficulty, they haven't been grinding as hard as I have, your instances will give you loot that is level based towards what your level is alongside the difficulty. So you can play pretty much with anybody from jump and be able to have a similar experience alongside your friends immediately as soon as you start playing, which is super cool. I think that's always been a weird part about most co-op games, is trying to figure out like what can you do versus what are your friends doing. Again, that balance of like, I'm playing a lot more than my friends may be, and does it feel like they are not able to kind of keep up with the people who are grinding super hard. Folks have real lives and families and all the things to kind of deal with. So playing now and being able to have that space to be able to do that work is going to be really fun for folks who are getting together in those ways. And Kairos will have these 4 kind of larger, massive zones that you'll be able to kind of free roam and roll through. Supposedly there are going to be no loading screens between those spaces. This is in missions that they saw during the demo. The new hunters were infiltrating a secret black site with a new character called Armada, which will be fun to see who that character is. There's a new glide mechanic, a new driving mechanic that feels more like a Sparrow in Destiny, which I think is super fun. That thing has guns on it, so I'm sure you'll be able to shoot baddies and shoot animals within the spaces that you've kind of gone to. The thing that has me the most excited, and the thing that I come back to Borderlands with, is I love their loot system. I love their gun system. I think, no one has still been able to nail what they do in that aspect in the ways that they get a chance to do it. Like, I don't think anybody has really gotten it as close to what they knock out of the park with. And it's rad because, you have your gun manufacturers that all have their very specific kinds of attributes and qualities to their guns. Theodore is the kind of manufacturer where you throw your gun and it then becomes an explosive or becomes a weapon. Jacobs is kind of the more tried and true weapon that you have. But what they've done to kind of flip that on its head is to say, you find a weapon in the world, and instead of it just being that brand weapon, which they will all be, parts of the gun will be different, will come from different manufacturers. So like if you had a Jacobs based weapon that is the kind of main part of the gun, it may have a Theodore, barrel, or it may have, another one that is a Maiwan or Malwan stock or something to that effect, or a different kind of scope in those ways. And that will basically give you this really infinite level of customization on a game that already had a ton of that. So like, what is that going to be for elemental, damage and kind of the way that you do, those attributes? It feels like that's going to be extremely cool. Like that's going to be the fun part of, again, going in and seeing this gun loot pool that is just going to be infinite. You'll find so many different versions and permutations of cool stuff that you'll be able to play with. That's the reason why I play a Borderlands game. So here that they're flipping it on its head and doing this, alongside adding things like what feels like almost a lash or a tether to be able to get to high places. And the biggest part, I think, is the exotics. The exotics are always going to be that one thing that you grind for and do multiple runs in a game for. And they've made that feel more special. I think one of the things they talked about in the state of play was, it was a little bit easy to get some of the biggest kind of, legendary weapons in the game. And once you got them, there wasn't a ton to necessarily do afterward. It seems like they're going to be going and trying to make those even more rare, while also making those, attributes and things that are coming along with those guns feel even cooler and more special. I am so hyped for that thing. Like that, it's one of those games that I've been dying to play. I think they said that they're going to have some play testing in June. I'm looking forward to speaking to folks on the back end to see if we can get into that, to give you some understandings of what that looks like from a gameplay perspective, because I'm dying to get in and play that thing. So really excited for that in a big way. I love that series and love what they continue to do with it. Second up in the 411 for this episode is, I have been playing a ton of Marathon. They came, our friends from Bungie let loose their alpha this past week. Excuse me. And I've been playing a crap ton of it. I've been just like marathoned out in the best ways. And it's been really interesting to hear the scuttlebutt around this game. I think a lot of folks have been, coming in with their takes about multiple layers of it. What is an extraction shooter supposed to be in 2025? Are we, are we out of the zeitgeist of what that genre can bring? And also the big conversations around not only Sony needing a banger of a hit to come out and be something that people want to play, and for a live service game, the conversation around live service has changed a ton in the past couple of years, while also this understanding of like, all right, so now that this is, a part of what these games do, what does that actually mean for the rest of the industry, and what does it mean for Bungie, and what does it mean for Sony, and all of those things? Because folks are coming to the table with the discussion around, this game is not going to be free to play. It's going to be, around probably $40 or so for you to get in and play. And I have a ton of different, thoughts and feelings about the, monetization in the space for games like this. and I'm going to get into that in a second, but I think the main discussion point is, at least initially, is it fun? This game is so fun. I'm having so much fun. I am playing the shit out of this game, and I am having a blast with it. I am learning so many different ways to play. The tactics that me and a couple of friends have been using to get into really good fights and to feel like we're learning the map and understanding the systems and all of those things so far. If you were to tell me, like, would you pay for this game? Would you buy this game? Would you be invested? 1,000%. I am rooting for Bungie. I am rooting for Sony to get this game off the ground in a good way. I want this game to be viable. I want this to have a player base and people to grind hard and have really fun, interesting fights and build on the lore that Bungie has been able to do through their lineage and through their pedigree of understanding. I am so freaking excited for this. I love the aesthetic. I think it's beautiful. I think it's smart. I like what they're doing in terms of story crafting. I think the interesting parts about the factions that you have in this game that are, multiple ways that you upgrade your character and also find ways to build lore about the world. Like, all of those things, for me, even in this early iteration of what we get a chance to see in a game that's coming out in September, are nailing it for me. Like, this is giving me, again, no matter where you feel about Concord, and there have been a ton of comparisons to Concord in this way. I have been a Concord fan. Like, I still believe that game was, was a fantastic shooter experience. Wherever you land on that is wherever you land on that. But for me, I think that game was dope. And the vibes I'm getting from this in terms of how I feel in terms of gameplay and how I am able to understand the systems and understand what they're trying to do and having those moment-to-moment fights that feel like energizing and tactically sound, and you kind of know when you've messed up. Like, the game teaches you a lot early about like what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. The ability to play in a game where the competitors are just as dangerous as the bots in this game, which I love. I love the fact that the world will mess you up. If you are not paying attention, you are not paying attention. Like, the game will teach you quickly that you can F around and find out if you want to, but you need to have your head on a swivel in a lot of different ways. And I love that. I think that is brilliant. I think it's very, very smart to make that feel dangerous in an extraction shooter where, again, your main gameplay loop is to get in, find some stuff that you need, and dip out. I think there's some changes that I'd love to see from a gameplay perspective. I think there are things that I think they can work on, and some feedback that I'm sure that they're getting. Like, right now, you have your main kit and you have grenades. Certain grenades don't stack inside of your backpack, which I think shouldn't be the case. I think all grenades should stack up to a certain amount. The way that, you are looking at the UI, there are parts of the UI that I would love to see change. I think, the loot that you wind up getting, I think some of those things in terms of the loot pool is going to have to change, and how often certain materials are going to have to come up in the world will have to get some tweaking. But I think those are all like fixable things that you have an alpha for. Like, those are reasons why you have feedback loops, and you put players in real life scenarios to be able to give you the feedback that you need to get you the game that you want, at least to be able to have it super viable in the beginning of its lifespan and its kind of launch window. I think the big conversation that I think is the elephant in the room is the price point. I've seen many friends and many people in the industry talk about games like this, all shooters now at this point should go free to play. $40 is now a restrictive amount. I don't believe that. I don't fully rock with that understanding. I think, yes, there is a price point that is prohibitive for people to get in for a new IP, for a very niche genre game. Like, this is not Call of Duty. This is not Apex Legends. This is not a game where it's not Overwatch where you just jump in and kind of like start to play. Like, you have to understand what you're getting into in an extraction shooter, and you have to understand what the main gameplay loop is. And you have to understand that, like, in a genre like this, it has baked in frustration. Like, frustration is baked into the process. And if you are sweaty like me and everybody else who likes to play games like this, you know going in that there's going to be a baseline level of frustration with parts of the gameplay loop, which are you have spent a fair amount of time in your 25-minute session of getting in and out, finding potentially, hopefully, dope loop that you can use for subsequent runs that you want to have. And then the risk reward of, like, you could do all of that stuff and get ganked by a random person that has crappier gear, or because a bot knocked you down, or because you had to pick up the phone for 2 seconds and check on a text or message or whatever, and you got your face rocked and you lost all your stuff. That is the essence of what a looter shooter kind of extraction shooter is. And I feel like we're having these discussions around price and what does that mean for growing a player base, while not also copying to the understanding that, like, Bungie is making a very niche game. Tarkov is a very niche game, which is probably the biggest and best known, extraction shooter on the planet. Then you have something like Hunt, which is a game that's also in that space, that is also a game that does that. One of the looter shooters, or at least the kind of, extraction layer of the Dark Zone when I was playing the Division 2, was a main part of that discussion of, like, when you start to play this thing, like, you're setting yourself up for the possibility of being mad at the fact that you are in this gameplay loop that is going to, remove progress in some form or fashion from what you've been trying to do. And I think the people who understand that can go in, wide-eyed and understanding, like, these are the parts that make up what these games are. So I don't want people to kind of come into this trying to make comparisons to games that are not really apt to make comparisons to. I don't think games are all the same in that way. That being said, we're now in a really interesting space in terms of gaming. I think the discussions around what is viable, what do we want to see, do we give games the ability to actually grow and actually make the case for why you might even want to play them, is increasingly going away. It feels like we are now in this space where games are not allowed to be what they want to be, or at least allowed to make the case to you as a player, because so many discussions are spoiled immediately from people who are not necessarily players of those genres, or people who are, playing those games and they may not necessarily like them, or a fundamental understanding of just, like, how game monetization works. And again, I think players don't care about that. Like, they're like, give me a reason to spend my money, and if you don't give me a reason to spend my money, I'm not spending my money. That's reasonable, right? But, like, even if you get a chance to play it and it's like, it's not my thing, I think that's viable too, and I think that's fine. But I think we do this disservice to the games that we get a chance to see in these spaces, especially new ones from established studios that are like, what I don't know what they want Bungie to do. Like, you could make this free to play, but then that means that you have to then ask the gameplay loop to be different in a certain way. You're then introducing things that I've heard players say they don't want, which would be microtransactions and a battle pass and all those other things that are also prohibitive financially, and also take away, from some of the gameplay loop, and potentially changes the way you kind of come to this game and your investment and all those things. I think the big conversation has always been, what game is going to break through that's going to take you away from Fortnite? And I understand that thought process, and I understand that that's the way that people are thinking about the current state of games, because we have so many games to play across so many different genres of stuff. But I feel confused at what players want and what the industry is telling people what to want, while also not giving games a chance to be able to do it. Like, we've already heard people give this a DOA prescription, and the alpha has been out less than a week. Like, people are finally getting their chance to play a thing, and they're already saying this thing has no viability and people aren't going to want to play it, and they shouldn't play it. It's not even the fact that they won't, it's the fact they shouldn't. And I think that's weird. And I think that sets people up for failure in terms of what industry ability to kind of make new things is going to be, while also we try to conflate everything to the thing that wasn't great before it. Like, again, if something is not doing well, or something is not, up to what you want, or is not in your wheelhouse, or something that you specifically care about or like, we do this thing, in the community where we're like, this is the next Concord, or this is the next X thing that didn't do well, or all of those things, as opposed to saying, well, let's look at the things that are good here. Let's give them feedback so that they can make those changes for us before the game comes out and goes live. And also an understanding that, like, most of these games don't get good until a year or two in. Like, most of the games that we've ever seen that have been bangers have had iterations where either they've done those IPs before and they've gotten sequels, or they've had time, especially as live service games, to learn what players want, learn about their own systems, and learn what those things are. Destiny 1 wasn't great right off rip. Destiny 2 had issues when it first came out. Multiple games that I've played over the years that have gotten really good. Division was a game like that. Multiple games have gotten better over time, but if we kill everything in its crib because of the zeitgeist or the misunderstanding or the misalignment that people wind up having, without them giving good feedback or giving actual, like, actionable feedback, we're just really going in this weird loop of nothing is ever going to be good again. Like, Clair Obscur 33 is a Game of the Year contender from a new studio that just came out. That game is brilliant on every level. It is also not a game that is a free to play game, or a game that is a live service game. So the investment is much shorter at a price point that is much higher. And yes, you can get it on Game Pass and things like that, but also the ask from your finances is different. It's a very time boxed experience. Like, yes, you can play that thing for 60 hours or 30 hours and then play it for another 30 doing grinding, other missions and stuff like this. Games like these, if you're really invested, give you hours upon years of time to play them if you give them a chance to grow and to show you why you should like it. And I think that part is just weird. I think that part is, rough for people to understand, that's like the way that these games work. And if you're able to do that and give those games, again, some space to grow, and again, some space to be viable, like, I think every game should get a year to showcase itself. Like, I know that's hard, and I know that's the thing that a lot of people don't recognize or rock with, but, like, I really am loving this thing. I want more people to play it. I want people to feel like they can invest their time into something. And it doesn't have to be your be-all, end-all game. Like, I think I bounce between multiple games all the time that I've invested many, many years with. Many years, much money, lots of dollars, lots of stuff. I'll even take a game like Marvel Rivals, for example. As a person who spent, since launch, a crap ton of time in that game, which is a free-to-play game, I love that game, but also I understand that it has shortcomings, and I understand that, like, the amount of money that I've spent in that game way outpaces something over $40 that I would get even more time in with playing it. And seeing how monetization of that game has been a little bit all over the place. It has been a really expensive game if you are, being honest about your FOMO and wanting to have the cool skin and all that stuff, which I think a lot of players don't actually say out loud. They may be feeling it, or they may not have the verbiage for it. But that's the thing that they should be understanding too. That's like, these are not psychological games in the ways that people have been playing. And you should be smart enough at this point to understand, where your money is being spent and why you're spending it and the emotional investment that goes along with that. Like, that's the beauty of being a consumer at this point, who is educated about what you want to spend your money on and what you decide to spend your money on. So I'm hoping that the narrative changes a little bit. Like, I want people to be able to feel like their money is being well spent, but also, if we don't give some games the ability to learn and to be viable and to grow, we're going to continue to get the same games over and over again in the same genres and the same twists on everything that we've already seen. And that's boring. That sucks. That's not as cool as it could be when we have so many different really smart people who are making games that are really well thought out and have a lot of, bang for your buck in a real way. I think Marathon has a lot of that already. I've had some fantastic fights. I've had some really dope matches. I've had some really, heartbreaking ones. And all of those parts that have come along with it have been really fun memories that I've had in a week that has gotten me really excited for what it could potentially be moving forward. And I think we can give games a little bit more space to do that, while also giving back feedback about what could be different, what could change, and what can get better in the gameplay loop. So yeah, I think for me right now, again, the small bits that I think that are necessary is changing the way some of the information you get is displayed, and the thing that is really important about this game is getting a decent scope for your weapons, because those guns are very different in the way they shoot, and they aim down sight speed is really important in this game. But there are very small, understandable things that if you are paying attention to, the energy and flow of a match, I love the fact that you can play tactically in this game. I love the fact that you can get downed and deaded. I hate the term unalive. That thing is stupid. Anyway, that's a gripe. But you can get knocked out and killed in the game. But I've not seen a game in a long time where you're just all right, I'm dead. But our team still has a chance if one of our players or whoever else is left is smart about understanding the human way players play. I think if you're a person who can rationalize and understand tactics in a way of not every fight has to be the fight you have to take, or players have their own time limits on their own runs. So even if you've gotten knocked down and killed, sometimes it's smarter to just run away and come back, go pick up your teammate, and get more loot before you dip out and leave. There are so many different smart ways to play this game that I feel like people aren't giving it a chance without doing the work of knowing and investing time, energy, and brain space for those layers of it. And the people who are doing it are having a blast with it. So I think really, really excited for what Marathon is going to do. I want to talk to those folks so badly. I'm dying to get somebody from Bungie on the team. From the team to come on the show to talk about this thing. And I am hyped for launch. I am ready to go for when this thing drops. And I'm willing to and ready to pay my money and put my money down to go play this thing and spend money on cosmetics and all the things when those things kind of come out. And, this game has a lot of things going for it. The visual aesthetic is really dope, and they're building on that. They talked about that. A lot of people have been discussing about the interiors being better than the exteriors. I think, having just played Arc Raiders, which is the game that I think everybody's loving all right now in terms of the extraction shooter space. I had 2 matches in that game, and it didn't grab me yet. This took me a couple matches as well to do that, but just from a feel perspective, and from a non-cluttered aesthetic perspective, this game is speaking to me even more and has a much larger, path upward for me to be invested, because I know Bungie understands lore, and because I know they know how to make a gun feel good and all of those things. And we're just scratching the surface of what that potentially be. Last story for episode 545 of the Spawn on Me podcast is some sad news. We've lost some folks over at Respawn who've gone through another round of layoffs, and it sounds like there was in the midst potentially a Titanfall extraction shooter that we might have gotten but no longer will get, unless there's a miracle that comes out from that discussion. Some folks over on the Apex Legends team, the Star Wars Jedi teams, and some other projects have lost their jobs, and Respawn is losing some folks in that space. And I have massive love to the folks over at Respawn. I've gotten to do some fantastic talks at the studio and talk to those folks about some of the work I get a chance to do. So hearing this is even more of a devastating piece of news. But they talked about in a statement that got released online the other day, that some of those unannounced projects that were in the incubation phase, had to go through some difficult changes, and losing some of those team members was a part of that conversation. I think, you know, what sucks is not only the fact that more people are now going to be unemployed, but also like, this goes back to what I was discussing before of like, what does it mean for games to be able to thrive and to flourish? Are we getting back to a space where that's no longer the case? Is that going to be a thing where, you know, if you're not having a major like crazy wild hit, you're just done? And that's coming from a bigger studio like Respawn. What happens to smaller studios that are doing that stuff? And we're seeing this even come across again with much bigger studios where the ability to try things is kind of getting less and less, and that's going to not be great for you as a player, for anyone who wants to work in the industry like me, and for other people who are like doing that work every day to kind of like build interesting and fun new experiences for players. And if a Titanfall, you know, game doesn't make it, and that is a well-established IP, what does that say about the rest of the space in a much bigger way? So we want to give some love to the folks over at Respawn. It is always a terrible piece of news to hear that the folks have lost their jobs, especially, you know, at a huge studio like this. And I know, you know, having spoken to so many of those folks, how good they are at their jobs and how well they make what they make. It just is heartbreaking to hear more folks losing their ability to bring joy to the world and to be employed while doing it. It's a very hard thing to see, and hopefully we'll you know, those folks will land softly in wherever they may be. We're gonna dip out for this episode of the Spawn Me podcast. Lots of goodies to come, lots of discussions to dig into. Summer Game Fest is again right around the corner. But yeah, let us know in the comments. Let me know in the comments here on YouTube and on Spotify and all those wonderful places where you can go listen to the show. There's a lot of dope places you can go watch us and get more me and more of the show and more of the goodies that we get a chance to talk to. I'm also in the job hunt. So if you're in the space and you're looking for a dope community manager or someone you want to bring on to do dope work along your studio, hit me up. KahliefAdams.com is a place to go reach out, or you hit me up on socials in my DMs and let's talk about all of the goodies that are in the space. Shout out to my Knicks. We're having a little bit of struggles. Please lay hands on Jalen Brunson's ankles. We need that for sure. But yeah, we're in a really good growth period here on Spawn Me. A lot of goodies are coming. Next week, there will not be a show. I'll be on a mini vacation, while also, you know, in the space looking for work. But I think the week after that, we're going to have some really dope interviews with some folks that you'll be hearing much more of in the short term. So massive love to you all. Again, thank you so much for rocking with us. Year 11 is in full effect. And this is one of the best years in gaming. So like, I have no complaints about things I'm playing and things that are coming down the pipeline. So wanted to thank you all for listening every week. And thank you so much for being a part of our Chicago family. We will see you all in a couple of weeks. And also we do have the Positivity Peddler show that just got announced that me and Paris Lilly are going to be doing. We're going to have to move the launch date by a couple of weeks. I think he had some family stuff. I had some family stuff. So we're gonna have to move the launch date. I'll be sharing more about that on social media as well. And next episode, I'll share the trailer with you all and all that good stuff. But we're gonna have our Patreon opened up then be able to have you all, if you want to come rock with us and hear about how we're thinking about the world and talk about all the other things that are not necessarily gaming related. I'm really excited for that project. It's been something me and Paris have been talking about for a long time, and now we're getting a chance to really like sit down and figure out what that's going to look like. I think you'll get a different side of us in a way that you haven't before, which I think will be refreshing for all of the folks who consider them to be fans of me and what he does. So massive love to him and to all the folks on that side too, and hopefully we'll be getting that to you very, very shortly. Until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Go enjoy the sunshine, go outside, go get some air, go take care of yourselves. I've been having some health issues, so it's been good to be able to get back on the road and figure out what that looks like and get better in those spaces too, because I'm getting old. Your boy getting old. So much love to you all. have fun. Go watch wrestling because it's really good right now and all that good stuff. And until then, we'll see you all in a few. Much love to you all and peace.